I'll look whatever you want to do.
Sweet. Sweet.
Hey team, welcome back to On the Couch. Today I'm here with Carissa. So Carissa is a nutritionist at the JCN clinic. And today we're going to be talking all about immunity. Undoubtedly we will talk about gut health. No doubt there will be some poo chat because we both love to talk about it. And yeah, so we're just going to dive into a few questions that have come through as well a little bit later. So as usual, the materials and content are not recommended as professional medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. They're for general information only. We're going to be going through a whole heap of different
You've said
questions.
that a few times.
Haven't I just? So, you know, if you do have specific medical issues, don't be a dickhead, see your doctor. And yeah, the end. So, Carissa, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, where you work, and how you even came into this realm of being a nutritionist?
Easy. Yeah. All big questions. So I'm a nutritionist at the JCN clinic in Brisbane, so Jess Cox Nutrition Clinic, and I've worked there for about 5 years, maybe 6 years, 5 years I think. So obviously the clinic there is renowned for digestive health and hormone health, so that's predominantly what we deal with. I have a special interest in genetics as well, so I do a lot of work with that, which is really fascinating. So that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. I manage the practice as well at the moment, so life's pretty full on. So prior to that, I think I always had this like massive interest in health, always this interest in food, but then I think like a lot of people who end up finding their area and their passion, you have a health crisis yourself.
That was my next question.
Yeah, and I think anyone who's obviously listened to our podcast, the clinic podcast, obviously, so I was always pretty healthy, like healthy teenager, you know, athletic, did all my stuff, blah blah blah, and then went through my normal teenage drinking partying stage that everyone goes through. Definitely pushed that way too hard, and then probably in about my early 20s, for no rhyme or reason, I just started suffering like debilitating anxiety, like hospitalized, awful, and I think tried to go down the orthodox medical road. I was pretty convinced I wasn't going to go on medication. So
were you a nutritionist at the time?
No, hell no.
Yeah,
no,
okay.
Not at all. I did a lot of research on my own. Like I was lucky. My mum, even though she works in the orthodox medical world, she's always been big on lifestyle. Yeah. So she really, and we had a lot of family stuff growing up where I've seen a lot of people end up on medication and also seen, the downstream effects of that. So I was pretty adamant that I wasn't going to go on medication for anxiety. And I was also kind of confused how you can go from being completely well and functioning and not even ever have had an inkling of anxiety to someone who all of a sudden it was just like someone flipped a switch, right? And I was, I would just get these cycles where I couldn't even leave the house. And if I was out somewhere and I had an anxiety attack, like I've had ambulances called, it was full on. It was just like this. Within the space of, a couple of months, I went from being a completely healthy, functioning human to someone who was just debilitated by this condition. So
looking back on it now, can you identify a trigger for that?
Yeah, I definitely can. I think I worked out how to fix it, but that definitely I don't think was the trigger. I think at the time I was just burning the candles at both ends. Like I was working 2 jobs, I was partying like a maniac, I was smoking pot, I was eating like what I thought was okay healthy food, but probably like in hindsight what I know now, shit food. So it's just a lot of things like that. So then
So you trashed your guts, pretty much.
Trashed my gut, trashed my mind.
Serotonin levels of zero.
Yeah. So then I went down this path, and I was lucky. Like I went from doctor to doctor, and I had all these tests done, and just kept pushing for another reason, like why this was happening. So I had brain scans done, heart scans done, or echoes, blood tests done, and then I was really lucky. Like my mum said to me, she's like, if you're not going to go on medication, she's like, why don't you sit down and keep a diary of how you're feeling every day, and how that, and when you feel at your worst. So I was like, okay, yeah, sweet. So I started doing that, and I started realizing that these things were happening in cycles. And when the cycles were the worst, I was obviously on the oral contraceptive pill at the time, as all young girls are, who are partying and just, having sex with their boyfriends and not caring about anything. Yeah. And I started to realize that what I was doing was every time I get these really debilitating cycles of them was when I was meant to be getting a period and I was skipping it because I was on the pill. Because who doesn't skip their period when they're on the pill when they're young?
Absolutely.
So I started realizing that was a real trigger for me. So I started cycling my period back in on the pill. And of course they got a little bit better, but they were still there. And then I was like, you know what, screw this. What happens if I come off the pill? So I came off the pill, and that changed things hugely. Again, still there though. So yeah, so it's just this process of elimination, I guess. So I worked through that, and then I started really looking at diet and lifestyle and doing a lot of research on my own, and obviously like researching the impact. I came across a lot of like just online chat forums and stuff, and just the impacts that, you know, gut health had for people. Also the impacts like eating at the time I would have been living on sugar. Like I worked
Me too. Low fat, all the low fat healthy whole grains.
Yeah.
I was eating so much fucking sugar and bags of Allen's party mix because
Same.
fat free,
mate. Like
and blood sugar like this.
Yes,
just
this is what
amped, and then like I'm dying. I'm so tired.
I'm crashing, and just thinking that you can, like, and I was working in hospitality at the time, so I was working nights, so you just live on post-mixed soft drink and juice. I would have Allen's lollies stashed, like bags of Allen's lollies, butter menthols, throaties, or
Weird choice.
I know, I'd love the aniseed flavour though, right? What are those bullseyes? Do you remember, like they were?
Oh, they're like peppermint.
Yeah, stripy things. Anyway, so I was living on sugar.
Artificial colour red.
Just
Pink, 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 pink.
multi-cocktail of just sugar-jacked, flavour-enhanced, coloured-jacked crap. And so that's what I was pretty much living on. And like in hindsight, like thinking back, like I'd actually kind of lived on sugar most of my teenage years. Like through no fault of my parents, where they were both amazing home cooks. But you hit your teenage years, you get a job, you can financially support yourself until shit hits the fan and you go running
Well,
back
you
to
can
your parents.
financially support your Allen's party mix addiction.
And your pre-mixed booze and
Yeah.
And oh man, so I started to read a lot about that and just realize that maybe sugar wasn't the best thing for me, but also start to realize that gluten probably wasn't the best thing for me either. Like I had a very wheat dominant diet. I just, I grew up eating white bread, and that's just what I thought was healthy. And I think over the years I probably switched to multigrain. So yay, we added some seeds in.
I worked at Brumby's. That was my first job, was at Brumby's when I was 14. And I used to just sit there and eat bread all day. Like I would bring home a whole loaf of bread and just like hollow out the inside of it and just eat all of the bread and the croissants. And I'm like, it's fine, it's all low fat.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, my guts are out here. I'm like...
And do you think, like, I even think back, like, it's hard because you just don't remember so much from those years, but I would honestly have to say, like, even on top of all the sugar and that, like, when you think about your gut health, like, I reckon I would have been pretty constipated. Like...
100%.
Like, I don't remember ever thinking about it until later on and learning the importance of gut health, but I look back on it and I don't ever remember... like being one of these girls that, had this really awesome, regular, healthy gut. I remember being bloated all the time, feeling quite toxic all the time, and
Absolutely. But you know what I think it is? I think a lot of people get used to that being their normal.
Yeah, 100%.
They get used to, feeling a bit bloated all the time, feeling a bit lethargic, getting those sugar cravings at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and, maybe having a crappy sleep, having crappy skin or dermatitis or all those sorts of things. And they just sort of, it's been going on for so long that that's normal. They don't know what it feels like to feel good. No. And so many people, what blows my fucking mind.
Oh, great. We can swear on this. I love it.
Oh, you can swear as much as you want to. What blows my mind is and Sophie and I talk about this in our gut health workshops all the time. If you're a mum and you've had a baby and your baby hasn't done a poo that day, you lose your mind. Like everyone is like, oh my God, the baby hasn't pooed. How do we make the baby poo? We're doing prune juice. We're doing poached pears. Like all of the things the baby must poo. At what point does it become acceptable that as an adult that you don't poo every day? Yeah. Like people, they're like, oh, I don't go to the toilet for a week. And I'm like, you need to go and see a practitioner, mate. Yeah. Because you are literally full of shit.
Literally, and circulating toxic shit. Not only are you full of shit, you're pumping more toxic shit through your system. Like,
and no wonder your hormones are imbalanced because you're actually
headaches and you feel crap.
I know. Absolutely. So everybody, if you don't poo every single day, you need to go and see a practitioner and sort your shit out. Literally sort your shit out. Yes. Yeah. So sorry, keep going.
No, that's fine. So that was kind of it. Like it was just a lot of process and like a process of elimination. So then I pulled out gluten, and I was lucky at the time. By that stage, I'd definitely, obviously given up smoking pot. That was one of the first things to go before the pill, actually. And then I'd scaled my drinking back to a degree. I was still in my early 20s. And I was lucky enough, I was working at this gorgeous Whole Food, like it was a Greek cafe, but the girls that I worked with were very health conscious. So I became very attuned as to, what gluten-free grains were. I also started to realize the importance of, protein and fat. So like what you were saying before, starting to realize that there's so much more in the world than just sugar, and that we have all these beautiful, you know, other whole foods that we should be eating. And that if you do that, I didn't know obviously the biochemical side of it at the time, but just really started to notice that if I wasn't living on carbs and sugar and I was actually starting to incorporate protein and fat, I felt a lot more even across the day. So there was definitely some things starting to tick for me there. So somewhere in that kind of window, like the anxiety just dropped away. So I don't know exactly, like I think it was definitely an accumulative thing. But yeah, and it was just interesting. I remember talking to my mum about it, and obviously I think around the time I was 22, 23, I was getting jack of hospitality. Like I was like, oh my God, I can't do this for the rest of my life.
It's a tough gig,
It's
hospitality.
a tough gig. Like unless you, even if you own your own business in hospitality, it's still a tough gig. But
I don't even like people. I worked in hospitality
me,
a
right?
while, and I'm like, I don't like people. Why am I here?
This is what people used to say to me. They're like, you hate fucking humans. Why are you working in hospitality? Like I go into my cave on the weekends and don't speak to anyone.
Absolutely.
So, but
don't
yeah.
talk to me. I'm introverting.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I'll make up some t-shirts.
Yeah, introverts.
Yeah.
Weekend introverts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then it was just, I kind of, like I was lucky enough to be working with some really cool girls, and, you know, none of them were studying nutrition, but they were just really into it. And then they opened up a whole other world of health and stuff for me, and I was just like, wow, there's just so much in this. And I think, it's just that, you know, it is like that typical story, your own health journey, but I think I was just like, well, you know, basically if this was so, not easy for me to do, but with enough searching, doable, why the fuck was this not talked to me at all by anyone? And I saw specialists, GPs, like I saw people that specialize in cardiac stuff, because obviously my heart rate would go through the roof. I saw people that specialize in the mind. I saw people that specialize in the electromagnetic stuff, like frequencies, like everything you could do, like I saw, and not one person said to me, are you on the pill? What do you do on your weekends? What the fuck are you eating? Like,
and so in that variety of specialists, was there any naturopaths, nutritionists, acupuncturists, nobody in that, like a bit more, we'll call it alternative health sort of field that's not, you know, full Western medicine? Interesting. And do you think at the time though, because I feel like now there is so much more awareness around 100%, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, like we're talking 15 years ago.
Yeah. And
so
when you know better, you can do better. And I feel like at the time as well, whilst that space probably had a little bit of insight into those sorts of things, I don't know that they still would have had the skills that people in that sort of space have now.
No, 100%. But yeah, I think the girls that I were working out with at this cafe in Spring Hill, like they were kind of a lot into that sort of more alternative world, and they really did open up. Like one of the girls was a vegan, the other one, one of them was like she was like a surfer and a pole dancer, but not pole dancer in a strip club, did it for fitness. She was one of the leanest girls I've ever seen in my life. But they were just really like, it was just a whole other world that I just didn't even know anything about. And obviously they were very into seeing naturopaths and herbs and all that kind of stuff. So I think that really sparked a lot. Sparked a lot of stuff. And then and then I just thought, you know what, like there's got to be more to this.
Brown.
Oh, it's fine. Little puppy. Look at it, I just love its legs.
Brown, stop being a pest.
And then I decided, because I knew I wanted to go to uni and study something, and then I just had a look around, and I was like, right, what degree is going to get me?
Yeah. So what did you end up doing?
Nutritional medicine, Bachelor of Health Science.
Yeah,
and I did it through Endeavour. I did have a look at a lot of their uni degrees, and because I knew what had helped me, and I pretty much looked at every course I could possibly look at. Do I need to do a degree? Do I need to just do a course? Definitely decided that to get the accreditation, you need a degree, and if you want to practice and work and understand everything, you need to do the degree. But I also looked at some of the bigger unis, and I was a bit like, well, you guys, you're just setting people up to kind of go into this dietetic realm and this orthodox realm, which to be honest, didn't really help me. I was just given diets and, you know, handouts of, you know, oh, you've got anxiety, do this, but it's just like, so I was like, well, so I went down the alternative road, much to a lot of people's like, are you sure you want to do this? And and I think it's been like, let me think. I started 11 years on.
Wow.
Here I am.
And so where did you work before you worked at the JCN clinic?
I pretty much finished my degree. I did a bit of work with Jamie Oliver's Ministry of Food and went straight into clinical practice.
Awesome.
Basically walked out, finished my degree, walked straight into clinical practice.
So I love Jamie Oliver.
Me too.
Love him. Just love everything he does. Love his whole approach to just whole food and real food and simplicity.
Simplicity. There's no bullshit approach to cooking. Like, just chuck shit in there. Like, here's your flavor list. here's what you can add, it will taste fine. Just don't be...
Put it all on a tray and roast it.
Don't be a wuss with olive oil. Don't be a wuss with salt. Like, I'm a salt fiend.
Oh, me too. Salt's like swearing. It enhances everything.
Absolutely.
Totally. And so but I also love the work that, he's trying to do in schools and things like that education with kids, because the amount of people who, even particularly at, my sort of age in school, who didn't know how to cook. Like, like left and, you'd live with these people and you're like, what do you mean you don't know how to cook? Like, mate, cereal is not a dinner food.
No. I had cousins, I'm not kidding, and they grew up, love them to death, so if they watch this, they'll shoot me for this one. But they grew up with an au pair or a nanny, and I went camping with one of my cousins once. And, mate, she did not know how to cut open an avocado and put avocado on toast. Like, it was like watching...
Amateur hour.
I was just, like, sitting there watching and going, have you done this before? Like, this is like... But yeah, it's a big eye-opener.
Yeah, I really do love the education that he's trying to provide, and that whole, like, I really love his focus on real food and kids.
The Ministry of Food thing, like, is really cool as well. Like, even, like, just the going into those, like, lower socioeconomic areas and just teaching people on a budget, basic cooking things. Like, if you've got a carton of eggs, don't worry that they're not free-range organic eggs. In the perfect world, they would be. But what matters is that you're getting protein and fat into your kids.
It's not Macca's.
Yeah, it's not Macca's and it's not sugar jack shit. It's, a whole food, and just how to cook eggs 3 ways. Just basic stuff that
and
people
scrambled eggs or poached eggs or fried eggs. Totally appropriate dinner food.
Yeah.
Like, put a bit of spinach or whatever greens look sad in the fridge in there.
And fry them up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that was really cool. Like, in hindsight, I wanted to do a lot more work with that and actually travel around on the food bus, and I didn't actually get that job, but obviously the universe was intervening, and within, like, I think a few weeks after getting knocked back for the actual traveling around job, I got an email from Jess to say that I got the job in the JCN clinic. So
awesome.
So that's it.
Yeah, never looked back.
Never looked back. Lots of things happening.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we've been banging on for quite a while now. What I would like to talk about today is particularly immunity. Coming into this whole winter cold and flu season, there's so much just shit going around. People are coughing and snotting. And
people are sick already. It's crazy. It's not even cold yet.
Yeah.
Well, a little bit.
So I guess we've got a few specific questions that we'll sort of dive into as well. But what sort of things do you do in general when you're coming into this cold and flu season, just to sort of help boost your immune system? Because what we know is that over 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So supporting our gut and making sure that we're supporting that immune system is really, really important. Is there any particular things that you do in terms of food, supplements, like particular practices that you might partake in that you find really help support your immune system?
Yeah, right. So I obviously, specialising in digestive health, I think we could dive into that endlessly. I just think, like, there's a couple of big things I think you want to sort out, and it doesn't mean, like, if you sort all these things out, you're not going to get sick. Like, it just means that hopefully you've got the best fighting chance of not getting sick. And if you do get sick, you bounce back from it. Like, we're all human. We all are going to come across viruses from time to time. And it's just about getting your body into the best state it can be all the time, so that if and when the time comes that you are going to get knocked down a little bit, you can fight it and bounce back. But it's also trying to get yourself nice and healthy as well, so that most viruses pass you by. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you've got a pretty strong, tough immune system, you're not immune from everything, but you should be immune from a good chunk of it. So definitely one of the biggest things, I think, is making sure your gut is functioning properly. And this is not just for cold and flu season, this is all year round. So I think paying attention to digestive health is huge, and understanding, like, just exactly what Shane was saying before. Like, if you're not having a poo a day, or you're having several a day and they're really unpleasant, then that's a pretty big sign to me that, things are amiss with your gut. Understanding, like, other things like, bloating, gas, reflux, heartburn, pain, anything like that. Like, ideally, I say to all my clients, aim for an 80% benchmark with your gut. 80 to 90% of the time, your gut should be pretty asymptomatic. You should be having a bowel motion a day. Bloating and gas should be be fairly minimal. You know, reflux and heartburn, burping, fairly minimal. Pain, distension, anything like that, fairly minimal. So if you're not hitting that 80 to 90% benchmark and you're really noticing that, more often than not, you actually have to pay attention to your gut because of symptoms, no matter what that should be, then I would say probably sort your gut out. That's a big one.
And do that with some testing. Don't just start throwing darts at shit, because firstly you'll waste shit tins of money just trying all of the things. Yeah. But if you don't know what's going on, like I think probiotics can be incredibly useful, but if you're not taking the right probiotic that you need, you're basically just creating really expensive poos. Yeah, exactly. And it's the same with a lot of these gut supplements. And I think there's two things going on at the moment. There's a really exciting part of the gut, the world of the gut, that's happening at the moment. We've got a crap ton of research getting thrown into the microbiome. We've got some really exciting literature coming out. We've got some really, in the last 2 years, the testing for gut health, gut and poo testing has changed so much. Like up until 2 to 3 years ago, we literally used to be able to culture some shit on a petri dish in a lab and see what grows. And now we can look at the genetic material going on inside the gut. So we have the tests are chalk and cheese. So when it comes to actually understanding your gut and what's going on, test, don't guess is my motto. I think we have so much information available at our fingertips now. The danger too with trying to eliminate or work out your own gut problems is that, and this is the downside to what's going on in the world of gut health at the moment, is there is just a plethora of shit information out there. And there's every single diet under the sun, and there's every single person, whether they're qualified or not, out there giving gut health advice. And to be honest, I shake my head at a lot of it, because it's just setting a lot of people up to fail. And you've got to understand that, when we look at the gut, it's such a complex little epicenter of microorganisms that only 1/3 of that you share with everyone. And everyone's different. 2/3 of your gut bacteria are unique, genetically unique to you. So what works for Shan is not going to work for me. No, we've got completely different gut environments. We've got a completely set of you and Jess have talked about that on your podcast as well. Like you guys eat completely different ways, and you couldn't work at all, and everyone, you'd both be so uncomfortable.
We both make jokes about actually swapping diets, and just even our timing of how we eat is differently. Like Jess is definitely more of an end of the night eater, like she does, whereas I'm more of a breakfast eater. Like breakfast is my meal. Like and that's for me, like understanding my anxiety, understanding my cortisol, understanding how my body deals with sugar. Like my breakfast has to be bang on. Otherwise, I'm just a bloody insulin shitstorm for the rest of the day. Yep. So there's so much in understanding that we are all individuals, and understanding that go and chat to someone who knows basically what the fuck they're talking about. And I say that in so many of my Instagram posts. But save yourself the heartache and the drama and the years of spending shit tons of money on supplements that may or may not work for you, and getting to the stage where you pull out all of these foods to try and control digestive symptoms, and you back yourself into a corner, and you're not eating half the beautiful foods you could be eating, all in the name of when you could just go see someone and sort it out.
Yeah. So, and on a side note, probably pull out processed food and junky sugar and shit like that. Yeah. Totally pull that out.
100%.
But you probably don't need to be going full autoimmune paleo or keto or vegan or just because maybe it will work. Like work out what's going on, and then tailor the way that you're going to eat to that. But it also needs to be a lifestyle. You can't be on a diet for the rest of your life. No one can do that. It's not sustainable.
It's not fun.
It's sad.
It's not okay. It's
absolutely. You need to just work out what works for you within the realms of things. Like I don't do well with dairy. Man, I wish I did, because I love cheese. But it's just not my friend. No. So I'm just not going to eat it, and I'm going to work out how I can work around that in life. But if you're
I will find a way.
If you're not intolerant to dairy, mate, I feel like good quality,
organic, grass-fed.
Absolutely, it could be a super nutrient-dense food.
Absolutely, 100% agree. 100% agreed.
So, is there any particular supplements that you take yourself if you're starting to feel a little bit run down, or you kind of feel like there's people coughing and snotting all over you in the train? Yep. What's your go-to sort of supplements that you would do to support your immune system?
Yeah, so my go-to, first it's probably worth mentioning that the reason the gut and the immune system are so connected is when you kind of think about the gut layer, and that's why we're obviously honing in on the importance of gut health, is that sitting kind of underneath our mucus layers of our gut is we have our lymphoid tissue, so it's called our GALT system, so our gastric-associated lymphoid tissue, and that is basically, the lining of our immune system. So everything that happens in your gut directly communicates with your immune system, and that sends messages out to the rest of your body. So that's why we bang on about gut health so much. So if I honestly start to feel like I am getting a bit run down or I'm around a lot of sick people, the first thing I turn to is food, to be honest. I get my slow cooker out and I will just chuck a shit ton of onion, garlic, chili and ginger, veggies, organic chicken carcass. I will just get the broth and soups and stews happening like there's no tomorrow. I think coming into this type of season as well, obviously this is a really nice time to just focus, our diet changes so much. I don't know about you, but during summer, I love my salads, I love my...
Me too.
Yeah, that real...
Cold, cooling food.
Yeah, cooling foods, fresh, energized,
Crunchy, raw.
And then as you sort of come into this time, you just start craving stews and curries and casseroles.
Beef cheeks.
Yeah, beef
roasted
cheeks.
veggies.
Yeah, so I feel like there's a lot innately in what we kind of crave that I think is basically...
Eating seasonally.
Eating seasonally, and that's our body also saying that we're coming into this time where, we need a lot of these, gut nourishing foods. The thing is about bone broths and anything where you're whacking, bones into stuff and you're slow cooking them, as you get these specific amino acids and these specific compounds out of these bones that line and look after your gut lining and directly control inflammation in your gut. So, that's a big one for your immune system. Definitely making sure you're eating a wide variety of vegetables is a big one, but honestly, I feel like you can't go past, for me, chili, sweating anything out. I will just super dose chili and garlic, just jam packing those guys into it. So from a food perspective, that's what I do.
One of my favourite things is the Keogh's fermented garlic paste. Have you ever had that?
Oh, no.
I've got some in the fridge. I'll give you some before you go. So she's basically got this organic garlic and she's fermented it. So instead of having that super burn your face off raw garlic situation, it's really mellow. But man, it packs a punch. You could just eat a spoonful of it.
Oh, well, I used to work with these Lebanese people and they used to skin garlic. They would just have cloves upon cloves of garlic and then just into a food processor, just slow drip olive oil and have all the cloves of garlic in there with salt, and it would be a garlic paste. It wasn't fermented, but I actually used to eat it by the teaspoon. It was, and I used to just put it on wraps and just smother roast potatoes. Oh man, it was just...
I do raw garlic too. If I'm feeling run down, I'll just get a clove of garlic and chop it into pill-sized bits.
Perfect.
Straight down the gullet.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
So there's all the food-based stuff. I think in terms of supplements, do you name supplements on here?
You can do what you want.
Yeah?
You do you, mate.
Okay, I'll do me. So I have two fave go-tos for immune stuff, and they are over-the-counter supplements. So Bioceuticals Armor Force is one of my faves.
Heard really good things about that.
Yeah, and it's got Angiographis in it, which is a great immune herb. It's got some zinc, it's got some vitamin C. So when we're starting to talk about the nutrients that you need, these are some of the things. So I think everyone goes, oh, I'm sick, I just need to smash vitamin C. Smash anything that's rich in vitamin D, which is, your eggs, again, we're talking about our bones.
Also get out in the sun.
Get out in the sun.
Actually get some sunlight.
Yeah, it does help. Believe it or not, all this natural stuff that nature provides us, good shit. Anything that's rich in zinc as well. So, all those sorts of foods. But yeah, obviously sometimes too, if you know that you've come into contact with a virus and you can feel your throat starts getting scratchy, do all of the food stuff, but I then up the ante and I will take that big time as well. The other thing that I think I'm pretty big on as well is I get people's vitamin D levels screened. GPs hate me for it because I'm just constantly putting it on referral letters. But I just think it's such an underappreciated vitamin. Do you know what I mean?
And it's one of those things that, I spend a lot of time outside in the sun and I was vitamin D deficient.
Same. I'm out running every morning in the sun. Granted, I work in an office, but I'm always outdoors on my weekends. And I did I hadn't done blood tests for 2 years, and last time it was fine. And I did it, 6 months ago. Did my blood test in November, got the results back, 2 months ago. That's how long it takes me to go and pick up some pathology. But anyway, just down the road from work. And I was, borderline deficient. So, and that was interesting. I was like, wow. And it's I feel like for a test that, should be written off to Medicare, and some GPs will do it. But, if you have to pay for it, just do it, because understanding where your vitamin D is in relation to your immune health, your hormone health.
Yeah,
hormones,
absolutely.
It's huge, ladies. If you want healthy functioning hormones, make sure your vitamin D is optimal. And when we're talking optimal, we're looking at a reference range, we don't want it sitting around 40, 50 or 60. We want it sitting up around the hundreds.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it affects your sleep. It affects everything.
Everything.
It's just more a hormone than it is a
I
vitamin.
100% agree. 100% agree.
And it's one of those things that, it fucks with everything if it's out of whack.
Yeah.
And again, it's a really easy test. Like it's
just you can include it in a routine blood test.
Yeah.
So I think understanding like everything else you can definitely get through food. You can still get your vitamin D through some foods and obviously being out in the sun. But I do find for a lot of us, and look at us, both of us eat like freaking superstars, and we are out in the sun, and we both still had low vitamin D. So for the rest of people that are eating crap and probably sitting in an office and never exposed to the sun, like. I'd love to know what your vitamin D is doing, and
absolutely. So they're really good supplements. I actually just ordered a thing on iHerb called elderberry syrup, which is super high in vitamin C.
Yeah, right.
And it's supposed to be a really interesting immune supportive thing. It's one of those things I'm like, can't do any harm.
No, exactly, can't do any harm.
Take this for a spin.
Yeah.
I also love like medicinal honey, so like Manuka honey things like that. Just I think for sore throats, coughs, all that sort of stuff. I mean, there's so much interesting research about like pineapple and the bromelain and stuff like that in pineapple for coughs and things like that. That
as a digestive support as well.
Yeah.
Like it's
but yes, huge fan of bone broth. I feel like if you CBF'd making your own bone broth, there's so many good quality alternatives now. Like there's so many of the paste concentrates that you can buy if you just can't be fucked making your own. Do that. It's super easy, and what I love about the paste is they're very versatile as well. So if you're actually not someone who's going to sit there and drink a mug of broth,
make a curry.
But even just you're sauteing some veggies in some
Tip
butter,
some in,
add a little bit of bone broth concentrate in there. Or you're going to make meatballs or burger patties, add some in there because it's not a huge amount of liquid. You can actually pretty much add it into anything that's not going to make everything watery and still get those nutrients in there. And even like the natural flavored ones, you could add like a teaspoon into a smoothie. You're not going to taste it. It's going to taste a little salty, but who doesn't love that?
Who doesn't love salt? Salt complements it all.
Absolutely. So in terms of any sort of practices that people could do if they're starting to feel run down, I know there's a lot of people who just, it's weak to stop and slow down and rest and we'll just power through, and I'll still go to CrossFit and I'll still do all of the things.
I'm a big person. Listen to your body. Like I think, if you're feeling run down and you're feeling sick, there's a fine line between sweating it out and completely wrecking yourself. I think we just without opening up a whole can of worms, I just feel like as a society we're just so conditioned to flog ourselves to death, and stress is better, and the more we achieve the better, and blah 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 blah. I honestly think everyone just needs to take a big freaking back step and really start stopping flogging this little vessel to death, and just appreciate that it can only fucking handle so much.
And more isn't always better.
And
Sometimes
isn't
more's
always
just
better.
more.
More's just more. And if you're starting to feel like you're getting, I even say to girls before they get their period, like that few days leading up to your period when you're tired, don't think you need to go and smash out a freaking HIIT session. Like, listen to your body. Go for a walk, chill out. And same thing can be said when you're sick. Like, you don't need to just go, oh my God, I'm getting sick, and just throw yourself into bed. It doesn't have to be like that, but it's just like, if you start to notice you're feeling a bit more tired, a little bit lethargic, get out in the sunshine and just go for a walk. Like, get some good old-fashioned...
move that lymph, get some vitamin D.
Some vitamin D, and that's realistically all you need. And also allow yourself time to recover. I think a lot of the things that we see is people go, okay, well, I've allowed myself 3 days to be sick, now I'm just back in full steam ahead. And it's not, it's understanding that, like a viral load in the body is just in terms of inoculation 3 to 10 days. And then, from the viral, your body and your immune system trying to get over that and deal with it, you've really got to allow yourself a week to 2 weeks, depending on the virus that you've picked up. Like viral fatigue or viral lag can realistically be anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. If you're still feeling tired 2 weeks after a virus, then allow yourself to be tired and give yourself the appropriate rest, and continue with all that nourishing food, because your immune system is still doing a shit ton of work behind the scenes trying to catch up. So,
and that gut needs to, heal and seal after that initial assault and all that sort of stuff. What are your thoughts on sauna, infrared sauna, or other sauna?
I actually love them. I have a lot of clients for gut health reasons, doing infrared saunas for detoxing reasons. There's some really cool research coming out about infrared saunas. Obviously with the type of testing that we do, and even just looking at different types of candidas and the byproducts that they produce, so oxalic acid, some of the easiest ways and quickest ways to get that out is to sweat that shit out. So
and heavy metal toxicity
toxicity, like I'm a huge one. I've got on a lot of my prescriptions, like I'm prescribing infrared saunas for people. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're awesome. Absolutely
cool.
Awesome. And a really efficient way.
Efficient, like you just, like you don't have to do any work. You just got to sit there. Like, it's
Absolutely.
great.
Sit there and listen to a podcast.
Yeah, sit there, listen to a podcast and chill. And float tanks. I'm yet to do a float tank. I haven't done one yet, but I've got a lot of people doing them, and just especially like my super anxious, lots of stuff going on, clients, and just in terms of just trying to get them, like, it's not even a quick fix, but it's just bang for your buck. You know, when there's so many multi-faceted systems at play that are just malfunctioning for people. Like, we see some pretty chronic cases at the clinic. Like, we're not just dealing with gut health. We've got gut health with compromised neurological function and compromised hormones. And, you know, like, it's just, the system is just pinging. And I feel like getting someone into a float tank or getting someone into an infrared sauna, like those, you know, I know that they're not the cheapest things, but in terms of, bang for your buck and what they can do for you systemically, it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. I think they're awesome. So in terms of kids and immune support, most people's kids who are at, you know, kindy or daycare are coming home, you know, with a snotty nose probably every second day in this sort of weather. You're probably not going to get Armour Force or anything like that into a kid.
No.
Have you got any particular recommendations for, you know, obviously food will be the first place to go to, incorporating bone broth and all that sort of stuff, and lots of diversity in veggies and all that sort of jazz into their life, but any supplements that you have found particularly appropriate for kids that help?
I think, kids are not my area, 100% say that straight up.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot with kids, but just in terms of gut health, I think you've got to think of kids like little adults. Like, I think there's this whole separation with kids and adults and what we do for them, and I think we really need to kind of be trying to, you know, feed them the way that we get fed as they will permit and allow, because they're fussy little buggers. But I think too, like, this is where I feel like probiotics can be quite useful.
Yeah.
I use probiotics a little bit in the clinic. I think they have their place, and, you know, in therapeutic doses at the right time and in the right strains, like what you were saying, the right types. Yeah. But I think for kids too, like, just really focusing on their gut health. Like, I think, you know, this is the time where the immune system's developing. So kids getting sick all the time is actually, I know it's a shit of a thing for parents, but it's actually a great thing for them, because it's actually building them up to be strong, resilient little buggers. I think stop sterilizing the crap out of our kids. Let them eat dirt. Let them play stop washing everything. Stop sanitizing the crap out of your homes. Like, kids, I was just saying, like, this whole, you know, immunological building and this immunological, you know, development really depends on kids being exposed to as much crap and gunk and junk and viruses as they possibly can be at a young age. But, you know, while that's happening, support the crap out of their little guts behind the scenes. Like, understand that if you, even just like, you know, if as a mum or as parents, like, you guys are immunologically compromised, or you've got food sensitivities, or you've got gut issues, then know that genetically your kid's probably going to have them too. So understanding what has worked for you and what is going on for you is definitely going to play out in what's going on for your kids. So being very health aware yourself will, you know, help your kids. But yeah, just trying to get as much good stuff in there. Like, obviously there's some really great, like, without naming too many, there's some really great little gut supplements for kids, like, just in terms of getting all that really nice, like, glutamines and slippery elms and all of that really, you know, nice, you know, just gut healing stuff in there. Like, Shan was making calming.
Yeah.
Shan was making gummies when I walked in. So,
yes.
You know, like, just that stuff.
Yeah, and that stuff's easy, and kids love it, and they think it's fun, and it seriously is so quick to make. So, yeah, again, and there's also a lot you can actually sneak into that stuff. Yeah. So, you know, like, we did mango and dragon fruit gummies. In the mango layer, I put a little bit of slippery elm powder in there as well. And, you know, I mean, even if you had something like echinacea or vitamin C or something like that, you could add a couple of drops of that into there as well. Like, you could put manuka honey in. You can add some extra, you know, collagen or whatever you wanted to in there to kind of boost these things up.
I think, like, and too, like, obviously work with a health practitioner that specialises in kids nutrition. But I think a lot of people are really afraid to get stuff into kids. And, you know, yes, talk to someone who knows what they're talking about in that area, but like exactly what Shan was just saying, like your collagen, like protein powder in the right types for kids at the right ages. If you've got a fussy kid and you know that they're not eating, they don't like eggs, they don't like chicken, they don't like beef, they don't want to eat anything that's, you know, protein is the basic building blocks of everything that needs to repair in our body. So if you've got a child who's just doesn't want a bar of that and only wants to eat like white bread or this, like I would be making them little smoothies and slipping all of that stuff in there. Like just you've just got to get as creative as you can, know based on your child's age and you know what you can sneak in and get in there and just try and.
She gets collagen in her porridge in the mornings.
Yeah, perfect.
And like it doesn't taste like anything. You could seriously mix it into whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like there's ways you can pimp out whatever it is that they're digging.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just
I feel like it would be kind of fun, like just to see how much stuff you could get in there and just.
It's kind of rage inducing though if they won't eat it and you realise like you're like, that just cost me $70.
That's a $50 smoothie, kid.
You asshole. But the good thing is, then you've just got a smoothie.
For yourself, you win. It's a win-win.
Everyone's winning. All right, so we might dive into some of these questions. Again, I'm going to say it again. This is not specific health advice. If you do have specific health questions that you want answered, you can come and see Carissa at the clinic. You guys do Skype consults too.
Skype, phone.
So even if you're not based in Brisbane or if you're like me and you can't be fucked actually driving into the city.
Which so many people are like that.
Will not do it.
I don't even want to drive into the city for work half the days. I'm like, I'll just Skype from home, guys. Like
Absolutely. So you can do a Skype consult. So, is getting colds and flus just a normal part of being human, or is it due to a weak immune system?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the severity and the frequency. So I think, if you're getting a cold and flu once a year, or maybe once every 2 years, I feel like that's probably a healthy immune system response. If you're someone who picks up everything that is going around and you just feel like you're constantly sick, and every time there's a bug that goes around the office, or your kids bring something home from school, you're picking it up, then I would say you need to work on your immune system. I also say to people, it's about what you get, but it's also about how long it takes you to recover as well. So like typically just obviously looking at the type of virus that you've picked up. Generally, if it's just a head cold, like realistically 3 to 10 days in terms of feeling pretty crappy, but you shouldn't be slogged down with that, and you should bounce back within a few days, maybe a few gunky days in there. If it's a proper flu, then expect to be knocked with that a little bit, but again, bouncing back. Whereas if you're someone that's just everything that you come into contact with, you're picking up, or you constantly I think one of the things I get from a lot of clients around this time of year is they just always feel like their body is fighting something. You shouldn't feel like that. You shouldn't always feel like a little bit dazed in the head and snotty in the nose and allergic to things and set off by your environment, and scratchy sore throats that come and go, or a little bit of a chest thing. Like that's all mucus, and mucus isn't great. So I think it's thinking about it is normal for people to pick up colds and flus from time to time, but it's understanding how often you're getting them and how long it's taking you to recover.
Yep, very good. This is a good one. Why does my tongue go all blotchy when I eat sugar?
Oh, let's talk about yeast. So obviously yeast, there's so many different strains and all of that kind of jazz in the body. It's a whole thing. I could talk for hours about yeast. But basically, like if you've got a systemic fungal overgrowth, one of the places that is a very telltale sign is on your tongue. So I feel like everyone probably just needs to stick their tongue out in a mirror tonight and have a good look. And your tongue should be a very nice, sort of almost like a rosy, pale pink color. Like if you've got like a thick white coating over your tongue, or you notice when you have a couple of beers that really flares up, or you eat some sugar and you really get this white coating thing on your tongue, or you're one of those people that's constantly getting like like oral thrush, like, and your gums start to peel, or vaginal thrush even. I think they're all signs that you've got some yeast and it's pretty systemic. So by the time it's coming through onto people's tongues, or they're getting that those vaginal symptoms, I'd be looking at yeast and looking at
and Caniston's probably not the answer.
No. That shit is messy.
And also it's treating a symptom. It's not actually treating the root cause of that. So I think, I know a lot of people who suffer from vaginal thrush, and they get it constantly over and over and over again, and they do the course of Caniston, and then a month later they've got the thrush again. It's because you're not actually dealing with the root cause. All you're doing is band-aiding a symptom.
Yeah. And usually by the time, I'm just patting the dog, that's what. Usually by the time, it is, you're getting the actual symptom. So you're getting the coating on the tongue, or you're getting the crazy vaginal itch that comes with thrush. Sorry for the boys watching this, but it is what happens for women. It's a sign that it's pretty widespread. So it's not about just treating the mouth or treating the downstairs areas. It's treating the gut, because this is where a lot of it is just hanging out and harboring. And it's a very competitive species when you start understanding its microbiology and understanding what it does. And it's also understanding that yeast is it's a pretty cool organism when you understand what it can do. But once it's set up home and shot down roots into your gut and has set up like little colonies, like you've got to treat it like it
can be pretty intense.
It's pretty intense, yeah.
And it's not something that anybody should be just going, okay, well, I'm going to go and do like an anti-candida diet, or I'm going to take some, Candida Destroy or whatever some supplement's going to be called. You really need to work with a practitioner, because you need to do some pretty intense stuff at the right times to make sure you're going to get that on there. And also, yeast loves sugar, so that's why you're noticing that flare with anything that's got sugar in it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, yeast feeds on sugar. It's its main food source, and it basically it converts sugar into like another compound, which is almost like an alcohol. So even people who have like a few boozy drinks, and the next day, like, I think, like, for people who have a candida overgrowth, they really don't handle booze very well either, because obviously it's an intermediate byproduct of what candida does with sugar. So just those people that feel really toxic, just you might have 2 glasses of wine or two cocktails, and the next day, like, obviously there's a whole liver and genetic element to detoxing alcohol as well. But I feel like for people with a candida overgrowth, it's pretty much like pouring petrol onto a fire if you have yeast. Like, expect a toxic byproduct party the next day. I was going to say something else, but I forgot. That's what I was going to say. So with the candida protocols too, like, I think we've got to step away from this, this 90s approach to gut eradication of organisms, and this doesn't go for candida, and this doesn't just go for parasites, or if you've got Klebsiella or Citrobacter or Campylobacter, like all these organisms that we know can be present in the gut and can be quite pathogenic in certain numbers. I feel like, the 80s and 90s approach was just that you go in there, you strip bomb out, you strip every carbohydrate out of the diet, everything that can potentially break down to a sugar, you strip out fiber, and then you just go in guns blazing with these high doses of antimicrobials. So
you're killing all of the bacteria.
You're killing everything.
You're starving all of the bacteria, even the good stuff.
Even the good stuff. And I think this is why it's so important not to go and just Google an anti-candida protocol, because, you might be starving the candida, but you are starving every other freaking organism in your gut when you go on a super restrictive diet for long term. So it's really about long-term management of candida, not just trying to eradicate it in this big bombardment of,
And because candida is normal. Like,
Candida's
everybody
normal.
has candida in their body.
100%.
But it's like any sort of bacteria or any type of yeast, it can overgrow, which is why people who are fucking downing 7 litres of kombucha a day are wondering why they've, got yeasty undertones in their life. Because too much of a good thing is still too
100%.
much. Like, you can still overgrow good bacteria and good yeast, and it can still cause you problems.
Yeah, it is. We've got to really look at the gut and understand that it is so much more complex than we give it credit for. So much more complex than we even know. Like, we're on the tip of the iceberg of what we know about the gut at the moment, and it is an exploding, emerging area of research and science at the moment. But I just think, like, the next 5 to 10 years are going to be absolutely fascinating in terms of what comes out. But we really have to start appreciating our gut as, basically like as a big ecosystem of microorganisms, and it's about getting it to work synergistically and harmoniously for you, not going in and just trying to just eradicate everything and then hoping to God this barren little wasteland is then going to cultivate some bacteria.
And it's not just about having lots of bacteria, it's about having diversity of bacteria, isn't it?
100%.
There's no point just having all of the lactobacillus or all of the bifidobacterium in there. Like, you want diversity of bacteria, and that comes from soil-based bacteria, and it comes from all the different things. You can't just have, yes, I've got 100 million bazillion lactobacillus in your gut. Well, that's not going to be fucking helping anyone, because all of the bacteria has different jobs.
No, exactly
they all,
right.
support different parts of our body. So having that diversity of bacteria is so important.
Yeah, and it's even what we're starting to understand now too. Like, I had a really awesome chat with one of the scientists from Microba, which is one of the gut testing companies. Like, and you know, she was obviously on one of our podcasts recently, but I caught up with her for a coffee before we did that, and I swear to God, like, you just, when you get someone who's passionate about what you're passionate about, and the science and literature that's coming out and all of that, and it's just, we've got to start kind of even just stepping away from how we've been looking at the gut for so long and understanding it's about the types of bacteria that you have in your gut and what their function is, because overall it's about the function of what they're doing that's important. Like, we're starting to actually see now, like, and there's some really cool literature coming out on lactobacillus, that a lot of people actually don't have it in their gut unless you supplement with it, or you eat a lot of, like, you know, your kefirs and your your sauerkrauts and all of that. Like, that's where lactobacillus plays a role and coming in, but it's not actually something that colonizes in the gut. And same with, like, you know, there's certain bifido strains, and yeah, it's really cool. And just even understanding, like, the literature on parasites. Like, I've spent years trying to counsel my clients just with parasites. Like, they get told they've got a parasite like blastocystis or dientamoeba. And don't get me wrong, some parasites are destructive as fuck, but some of them are just part of a normal ecosystem. And most of us at some stage in our life are going to be exposed to parasites, whether, you know, it's through our animals that we love, our beautiful little children that bring shit home from play school, you know, like just eating, you know, organic veggies that haven't been blasted with every pesticide and freaking organism killer under the sun.
Dirty potatoes. That's what G calls them, dirty potatoes. Are we going to get dirty potatoes?
We're getting dirty potatoes.
Absolutely. Get all the dirty potatoes.
So, you know, it's inevitable that we're going to come into contact with parasites, and it's not about, again, going in and trying to go, oh my God, I've got blastocystis, I need to get rid of this organism in my gut. It's like, no, we've just got to get your gut to have a harmonious enough environment that organism is in a number or in, you know, a quantity that it's not aggravating the gut, and you know, your gut bacteria might actually end up overruling and just decide that you know, blastome might decide it can't have a home in your gut. It might decide it can, and it might decide it can do that quite harmoniously with your other organisms in your gut, and it's not an issue. So, yeah.
And it might not even be about, you know, getting rid of those bad bacteria. It's making sure that you've got enough good bacteria
to keep them in check.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's exactly the approach that we need to start taking with the gut. So, big area, love it.
What is the best diet for hypothyroidism?
Have you got 3 hours? Okay, so
it depends is probably the answer.
Yeah, it depends. So it's understanding, again, like, hypothyroidism is obviously a, you know, for anyone who doesn't understand it, let's just say it's when your thyroid's not functioning optimally. So our thyroid needs a lot of nutrients to function properly and to create, you know, to send out T3 and T4 and all of that. It's got a lot to do with your gut. So that's why there isn't one diet that suits. You want to understand what's going on with your gut health. You want to understand what's going on with your adrenal axis. So it's really how many times can I say it's really understanding? Oh my God. It's having a look at, for you, what your inflammatory drivers are. So you want to be on an anti-inflammatory diet that suits you. You want to make sure you've got optimal nutrients for the thyroid to function properly. So that is iodine, tyrosine, zinc, selenium, and vitamin D. So they're all pretty big game players on their own. Understanding, you know, your relationship with certain grains. There's enough research and enough literature out there now that, you know, gluten is so pro-inflammatory, or gluten-containing grains can be so pro-inflammatory in our gut, but can really, really potentiate thyroid conditions.
And especially any autoimmune condition.
Or any autoimmune, yeah.
And I mean, the risk of having more than one autoimmune condition once you've got one is
you're 3 times more likely to get another 2. So,
absolutely. So doing things that, like you said, are going to be anti-inflammatory as opposed to pro-inflammatory. Can only be a good thing. Yeah, and stress is huge for thyroid as well. Like, you need to understand, like, we've got to stop segregating all these different systems of our body and just going, okay, I've got a thyroid problem, let's treat the thyroid. If you've got a thyroid problem, you need to treat your stress, you need to look at your inflammatory markers, you need to treat your gut, you need to look after your hormones, and you need to understand what's going on with that crosstalk between your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and your adrenal. So that... And also probably the movement or the exercise component that goes along with that is going to look really different for somebody who is right in the throes of having a thyroid flare. CrossFit is probably not your friend. HIIT is not your friend. You need to just be doing slow, gentle walks, restorative yoga, things like that. Like, the movement part of managing dis-ease is huge. It's huge. And I think the problem with a lot of people with thyroid is, particularly when you've got that underactive thyroid situation, you're putting on weight. People are like, okay, well, I need to exercise more and I need to eat less, because that's just the
worst thing you can do.
Exactly, and that is exactly what you don't need to do. You need to eat right, and you probably need to sleep more and rest more and do more restorative movement as opposed to
trying to flog an already pissed off and inflamed, stressed out system. Let's just flog it some more. It doesn't
because
work.
exercise is a stress as
Exercise
well,
is
and
a
I don't
stress.
think a lot of people understand that exercise is great, and it can be a really useful stress for our body in terms of adaptation and growth. But it's also a stress. If you're stressed in your relationship, you're stressed at home,
Stressed
you've
at
got
work,
food stress,
gut
you've got
stress.
a dis-ease, adding in the stress of exercise and that excess cortisol production is going to be it's going to do completely the opposite thing that you want to.
100%. And it's a big one. Like, I have to sometimes do testing to prove this to people. I'm just like, fine, if you're not going to listen to me, let's do a Dutch test, or let's do a thyroid and adrenal couple of panels and have a look. And more often than not, their cortisol is either through the roof or it's flatlining out. And unless, it's really important to understand what your cortisol is doing throughout the day, because this will really dictate the type of, I'm glad you brought up the exercise component, because like, I love, saying, like, not love saying to people like, haha, there you go, but I love being able to show to people like, look, this is what your cortisol is doing. This is what your stress axis is like at the moment. Therefore, you shouldn't be doing this type of exercise. Oh, look, you were like this, but you've done all this lifestyle stuff. You've worked your gut out. You've worked out your inflammatory mediators. You retest and you have a look at someone's, cortisol throughout the day, and it's within normal parameters. And you're like, right, you can amp your exercise up now because your body is in a state where it can handle it. But
yeah, and just because something works for you at a certain period of time doesn't mean it's always going to work for you. Like, I went through a period of time where I was doing a lot of CrossFit and training really hard, also at the same time as I was trying to fall pregnant. And I had, seriously, like, my adrenals were fucked. Could barely pick myself up off the floor at the end of a workout. But my hormones were all over the place. I had like a 45-day cycle, didn't know when I was ovulating. Like, it was just, my periods were all over the shop. My hormones were fucked. I was putting on weight. My skin went to shit. And I was like, I need to CrossFit harder.
Yeah, I need to just push this
do.
little vessel more.
I need to CrossFit harder. And that is completely not the answer.
No.
And now I think, I train less than I have ever trained in my entire life. And I think I'm probably stronger, fitter, leaner, maybe
Healthier.
not fitter, because I don't do as much,
Cardio
exercise
sort of
as what I did, but definitely stronger, definitely leaner, definitely healthier than I have ever been, without having to flog myself.
Yeah.
By going to do some sort of, exercise that might be weights or a boxing session, 2 or 3 times a week, and then going for a walk every other day. And that's how my body is feeling good, and that's why my body has all of a sudden just gone, oh, thank fuck.
It's what I explain to
and
people.
And my sleep's better, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It just, more isn't always better. Sometimes it's just more. But it's so counterintuitive, and I think particularly as females, we always have that thing in the back of our head. If I want to lose weight or be healthy or whatever, I need to eat less and I need to train more. And it's so counterintuitive to do the opposite. But I think, and it's scary. I think for a lot of people, it's very scary when you tell them you need to eat more food. And they're like, I keep putting on my, and it's, you're not eating enough food. That is not enough food. This whole 1,200 calories thing.
I think.
How is anybody alive on 1,200 calories?
I had a chat with. I can't remember what I was.
I think I ate 2,000 calories in my breakfast the other day.
Yeah, I know. I had this chat with someone the other day. I can't remember if it was on. Yeah, it might have been on an Instagram live. Might have been talking with Alana about. We were just saying we're just talking about calories as a just as a thing, and why there's so much more to weight loss and health than calories. But if you're on 900 to 1,200 calories a day, you are freaking starving yourself. You are putting your body into a state of stress, and you will not, some people, don't get me wrong, will lose weight whether or not it's in a healthy way, but
to a point though, and then your body's going to go, actually we're in a famine and I'm going to
hold
on
weight.
Absolutely. And I'm going to shut down your reproductive organs.
You can't ovulate. I don't want you having a baby.
Absolutely. And I'm going to fuck with your sleep, because clearly we're in a very stressful environment. We could die at any point, so we won't let you sleep because something bad could happen if you sleep.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's just. Anyway, that all came from hypothyroid. So the answer to the hypothyroid question was, it depends, work out what you want to do, probably cut the shit out of your diet to start with.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know, work with a practitioner to work out what works for you.
You have to work out what your drivers are. I think we're kind of, we're so in this day and age where we're sort of attuned to just thinking, okay, you've got a thyroid condition, or you've got X, Y, and Z disease, whatever it is that you've got, therefore this is the treatment protocol. It's not like that, because what got you from A to B to C is not what got X person over here from A to B to C. So 2 people with, subclinical hyperthyroid or Hashimoto's, which is the actual autoimmune thyroid, I guarantee you could have 2 people standing side by side, and what got one person to that state is not what got the other person to the state. So therefore their treatment will not and should not be the same.
No. And I think, start with a whole food template and see how that feels for you. And, like Chris was saying, there's some really strong links to gluten and inflammation and things like thyroid disease. So, you know what? You could probably get nutrition 1,000 times over from, gluten-free grains and fruit and vegetables and good quality meats than you can from a piece of white gluten-containing bread. So maybe take that out and see how that feels for you. Yeah,
look at like just even macro balancing your food. Like there's a really strong relationship between your thyroid hormones, your insulin, and your cortisol. So understanding just even how to balance your food properly across the day so that your blood sugar is even and it works and it has this beautiful keel across the day as opposed to blood sugar doing that. That alone can impact your thyroid and your cortisol profoundly. So what's your thoughts on things like an autoimmune paleo protocol? Yeah, I think it's so individual, and I think there's some great autoimmune protocols out there. Like Amy Myers has done a really good one.
She's great.
Yeah, she's really great. I've listened to her speak, and Terry Wiles as well.
Terry Wiles is amazing.
Yeah, like I do think
she's pretty extreme though.
Very extreme.
But she was in an extreme situation.
She was in a crazy situation.
So you got to meet that extreme with some pretty extreme diet and lifestyle changes.
100%. So I think it depends on your autoimmune condition. I think it depends on the severity of it, and I think too, like stripping back and cleaning your diet up is the best thing you can do. Whether or not you need to go full paleo, I think too, like people need to. I feel like everyone's got a different version of what paleo is.
Because it's a template.
So it's working out what is going to work for you. Not everyone needs to be, and as far as gut health is concerned, like no one should be long-term starch-free, carbohydrate-free and all of that. So I think, like root vegetables do need to be part of it. Legumes to a degree.
And
they're freaking delicious. But yeah, it is. It's about, I think too, this is where it has to be so individualized. Like if you're going to work through someone else's protocol, that's great. I also think with a lot of the autoimmune paleo protocols, or even like a lot of the autoimmune protocols, there's no integration back in for a grey area, which is what I've sort of struggled with. Like even listening to like Amy and Terry talk. Amy obviously starts to bring a lot of stuff back in with hers. I think but
it's a case of working out what's going to cause your flare.
What's going to cause your flare? Yeah, exactly.
And I think that sometimes they're a really good template for basically removing anything that could be and things that could potentially be inflammatory.
Yeah.
But you look at something like an autoimmune paleo protocol, and you can't have nightshades, so capsicum, chili, potatoes, eggs, any of those sorts of things. Like if that doesn't cause a flare for you,
have it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So potentially, take those things out if you do have an autoimmune condition for a period of time, and then do a really good reintroduction protocol to work out whether that causes a reaction. And if it doesn't, what we want, diversity in our gut bacteria, is we want diversity in our food. Like we want to be able to incorporate as many different things as possible. Sophie and I have just started doing these keto and low carb workshops because because either of us particularly fangirling on keto at all, but we just saw so many people doing a whole lot of bacon fried in butter with a side of cheese.
And this just shits me with the
and
whole...
I'm so keto, and you're like, no, you're so constipated.
Yeah,
and so nutrient deficient.
Yeah, and I guarantee the bacon is probably the cheapest bacon you can... Oh.
Absolutely. So really, these workshops are actually just eat more fucking vegetables and stop being so stupid. But also, it's really about helping people to understand that just because 30 grams of carbs a day for a prolonged period of time will put everybody in ketosis does not mean everyone needs to be in that. Like you can probably get 80% of the benefits of ketosis by incorporating some intermittent fasting into your life and eating.
And still eating.
Eating gluten-free grains and potato and sweet potato and pumpkin and all those sorts of things. Or you can, if you do have a particular health condition where keto could be super useful, your carb tolerance might actually be closer to 60 or 100 grams a day because you're a super active person. So that's where you want to be with it. You don't need to be at 30
grams.
You want to be at the highest level that you can be to get the therapeutic benefits that you're looking for.
Yeah.
But if you're coming to keto for weight loss, which I would say 80 to 90% of people are, you can probably get, like I said, 80% of the benefits of doing a strict keto diet and not hate yourself by just incorporating a bit of intermittent fasting into your life, cutting out processed carbohydrates.
I even think too, like I feel like too, it's coming back to this grey area of that we really just, like, without, like, this is probably going to open up a whole can of worms again, but like we really need to think about how much we actually freaking eat sometimes too, like portion sizes, timing of food. Like, we shouldn't be eating from the time we wake up in the morning, so from 5 a.m, let's just say for me, through to, like, you know, maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. We shouldn't be gorging on food for that entire time. We're not meant to just be constantly shoving our faces with food and you know, so even like the whole intermittent fasting thing, like I'm going to be so excited to see the literature that comes out about that, because I think there's some real merit in that. But I'm also like, is it just how we're kind of meant to be eating? Like,
but everybody fasts unless you get up and you eat in the
middle of the night. You're fasting.
You fast like it's a normal bodily process. You eat dinner at 7 o'clock. You have breakfast at 7 o'clock next morning. You just fasted for 12
hours, guys, and that might be all you need to do.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
So, and even with the whole, like, the keto, like, there's just so many variations of, if you need to do a ketogenic diet for a period of time for an acute health condition, there's exactly what Shane was saying. There's ways to do it healthily, and there's ways to do it from a completely toxic, processed, awful way. And it's then too working out what your grey areas are, and it's the same with the autoimmune protocols and all of that. Like, if you're in an acute health crisis and you need to get into a, you know, a harmonious state again, there is going to be a period where you need to do some, you know, some sort of intervention, whatever that may be for whatever condition you've got going on. But once you've got all those inflammatory processes under control, and you're working with a practitioner, and you've got all those pathology markers back where they need to be, and everything's starting to work along, then integrate things back in, because for the health of your gut and for the health of your body, we need diversity of food.
Absolutely, like, and nutrients. Like, every different food that we eat has different nutrients to offer us.
Okay. I feel like each question we're like, okay, let's chat for half an hour.
I know. Oh, this is a really big one too.
Oh, God.
The best ways to balance hormones with diet and exercise to minimize weight gain.
Did I just write an article about this for you?
Pretty sure you did. Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, so this is honestly, again, a pretty loaded question, because I feel like, again, this is just not something that is the same answer for every single person. Like, if you've got hormonal stuff going on, you need to understand what is going on. Like, even if we're just looking at reproductive hormones, you can have estrogen issues that will cause weight gain or make weight loss harder. You can have androgen issues. You can have a combination of the two combined. If you've got either of those going on, there's a chance you've got low progesterone. So, understanding that is really important.
Could have cortisol issues. That's making everything else get completely
fucked. About to say, it might have absolutely nothing to do with estrogen and androgens, and it might have a shit ton to do with what your cortisol's doing and how stressed you are. It might have a lot to do with your gut. It might have a lot to do with your genetics and how you're actually detoxing and breaking down your hormones. Hello, mate. There's so much in it. So I think for that, like, an exercise, again, coming back to understanding what type of exercise is right for you at that given time. So
definitely. And that might change within your cycle, not only just within that period of time. Like, within your cycle, it could look very, very different, like you were saying before. Some people just need to calm the fuck down when they're, at certain points in their cycle as well. And again, you need to know what's going on with your hormones. You need to have your hormones tested. You need to have the right hormones tested.
And can we just say, while we're on this, total disclaimer, like, GP hormone testing, just stock standard bloods, is not the best way to look at hormones. Like, there's so many other better available tests now that we can look at. Your reproductive hormones, your adrenal hormones. Like, you really want an idea of how they're all functioning as a whole. If you want to understand if hormones are your issue for struggling to lose weight or not being able to maintain a healthy weight despite exercising and eating well. So
the tests that you're talking about that are more useful, is that something that people can ask their GP for, or they need to get you to ask them, like, you need to refer?
Yeah. So it depends on what you're doing, and depends on the type of GP you're seeing. If you're seeing an integrative GP, then they will they will probably be utilising this testing. Otherwise, you come and see us, come and see a good holistic health practitioner. These are not just stock standard blood tests. Like stock standard blood tests are serum. Realistically, the best way to look at any sort of adrenals, reproductive hormones is salivary or urine metabolites. So that is testing, that a lot of integrative labs do. I think anyone who does follow me on social media or has listened to any of the podcasts or anything that I rant on about, I hands down love the Dutch test. That's just my favourite. It is a whack of money, but holy crap, it gives you everything. Like the amount of information you can pull out of that test is just next level. So
yeah.
And I think if you have tried everything and you're struggling to lose weight and you just feel like it's hormonal and your period might be all over the place, or your period might be fine, but you're holding weight in those real classic, estrogen areas for women, which is, the backs of our arms and, the midsection and the thighs. Like you want to know what your estrogen's doing, you want to know what your androgens are doing, you want to know what your cortisol's doing, and you want to know what your insulin's doing.
And also, I think everybody stop thinking that you're not supposed to have a little bit of fat on your thighs.
Oh my God.
Because that's actually really
Girls,
normal.
we need a bit of fat.
I mean, that's why your hormones are fucked often, is because you don't have enough fat stored. That's our body's freaking out that it's not going to be able to reproduce because you don't have enough fat on your body to support another human being, let alone yourself. It's normal to have some fat on your body. And yes, some people are naturally very, very lean, and there's probably 5% of the female population who doesn't have cellulite, but you know what, everyone else does.
All got it.
And it's fine. It doesn't define you as a human. It actually doesn't define how healthy you are, or whether you eat well or don't eat well. It's completely normal, and it's a basic survival process for our body to have that extra fat on our body. I think sometimes we just need to get over that as being a problem.
Yeah.
It's not. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
It's just a thing.
Yeah, I know. It's just, it's something like I feel like we could bang on about for ages. But I think too, and I've chatted about this in podcasts as well, it's being realistic about your weight and being realistic about what is healthy for you, like where you want to sit and what is actually healthy for you may be two very different things, and you have to come to terms with that. Like me, for example, like let's just say like I don't even weigh myself that often, but I'm like I sit anywhere from probably 63 to 66 kilos. That's my healthy weight range. Like that is where I sit healthily. Oh, look at that lizard, he just went, anyway. It was like this long. It was just straight through.
Oh, a shiny thing.
Yeah. Mate. I'm like, off topic. And let's say I could probably be 57 to 60 kilos, but what I would have to do to my body to get it to that would be too stressful for it and unhealthy. So,
and also how hungry would you be? Like the amount
I just love food.
The amount of dialing in of your nutrition, like particularly, hey Squish, come sit down, baby. You just got to be quiet, okay? Like the amount of dialing in of nutrition that needs to happen for a female to maintain a six-pack is an incredibly low body fat percentage. And you need to seriously, like you would need to be weighing your food and measuring your macronutrients and stuff like that for what?
For
like
what?
I don't understand.
So someone can go, oh geez, you've got a six-pack. Like I'd rather say say to me like, geez, you love your food.
Absolutely. Yes. Or gee, you're strong.
Yeah.
Like you can
you
lift
look healthy.
A heavy thing,
yeah.
Or
I love it when we go camping and stuff because like I can literally just like I can like lift the eskies and do all the stuff, and like I remember the first time my sister's partner came camping, like, and Dad and I went to lift, like it was a big esky out of the back of the car, and Finn's like, I'll grab you that for your wrist, and Tanya's like, don't bother. But it's just like for me, like I would much rather be a healthy, strong female whose immune system functions well, whose gut functions well, whose hormones function well. I have great energy. I know you do as well. Like these things, you've got to really evaluate what's more important to you as a female. Looking amazing at the cost of your health and the cost of your sanity, or looking healthy and feeling amazing.
And also like sacrificing really any social interaction.
Yeah.
You really want to have, because you can't go out to eat with your friends. You can't go and have a glass of wine with your friends if you're going to be restricting to that level. And also for what? To look back when you're 70 and go, oh wow, there's a photo of me and I had abs.
Yeah.
I was really miserable and really hungry and but I had abs for like a period of time. I just think, and there are certain people who are lean, and their body will naturally be like that, regardless of what they do, regardless of what they eat, regardless of how much they train.
And that's just
their body type.
That's their body type. That's their genetic makeup, and you know, and that's great for them. And it's just like, it's just stop.
But it doesn't mean people are healthy. I think we need to stop looking at someone and going, well, they have a six-pack, so they're healthy.
I think there's like enough people too, like there's enough, like even just like, I know even Em's done a really awesome post, like I might have even been last year sometime when she used to train ridiculously, and you know, she actually looks scary fit. Like there's a photo of her on a pull-up machine, and I just remember looking at it and I was like, that scares the shit out of me, Em. And she's like, oh mate, and she's like, the lengths that you have to go to though to be that fit and do all of that, and the cost for your mental health, like it's there's so much more to life, guys.
And just the stress. I think the stress that sort of adds to your body, I think is a lot. And you know, everybody, you do you, but for me, I just think, jog on, Susan.
Susan.
Okay, let's just do one more.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I've got two more.
Okay.
Any breastfeeding specific friendly immune support?
Like I would just say, sort your own gut health out. Understand that if you've got food intolerances, that if you are breastfeeding, and there's a chance that, you know, that's going to be impacting bub as well. Like there's enough stuff now where, you know, if your bub's got a bit of, you know, upset gut, you can pull stuff out of your diet, and that obviously helps them a lot. So, but if you're just thinking for immune support for yourself, all the things we've talked about, focus on food, and that, you know, you can take collagen for your gut lining while you're breastfeeding. You can have protein powder, you can bone broths, all of that
soups.
stuff.
And this sort of weather's perfect for soups. Just instead of making your soup on Campbell's shitty stock, actually just make it on real bone broth.
Yeah, just you can jam pack so much nutrition into, and the thing is, a lot of that stuff, like get your slow cooker out. I know you mums are so busy. Get your slow cooker out and just have something on the go all the time, and just freeze it. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you've got go-to.
And the same thing with baby food too. Like if you're making purees or whatever for your kids, add some bone broth in there. Like there's nothing wrong with doing that to help support their immune system and their gut health as well.
No, 100% not. You're deciding if we're going to...
Too many questions, and they're just big.
They're big questions.
Okay. I'm gonna.
Maybe we could do like a split screen live. Well,
Yeah.
We know you are.
I know. We can see that you're awake. We'll do one more question, okay?
The meaty questions for
They
people
are
like
meaty
you and I that are
questions.
just like, well.
Best tips for regulating bowel movements. Now, I'm not really sure whether that's a overall underactive bowel that we're talking about, but I don't know. Have you got any particular
Freaking fiber.
Yeah.
So I think too, like I just always say, like we've got the 3 Fs. Fluid. Make sure your fluid intake is adequate. You've got to be drinking enough water. Your electrolyte balance also has to be spot on. So you want to make sure you're hydrated, but you're hydrated properly. If you're someone who does a lot of training and sweats or works outdoors, like drop some hot bloody hydrolyte into your water. Get into your coconut water. Make sure you're putting salt with your food. Like your electrolytes have to be good for that. You know that even that like water uptake into the cells. But yeah, so fluid, hydration, really important. Fitness. Get your ass moving. Again, find an exercise that suits you for, you know, your adrenal output without getting that too complicated. But you've got to move every day. Sitting on your butt, sedentary lifestyles, no excuses. Like I think everyone should be able to find at some stage some way to move every day. It doesn't have to be a HIIT session. It doesn't have to be a gym session. It just has to be movement of some way, shape or form. And then fiber is my next one. Like if you have a sluggish bowel, like there's can be so many other things from a bacterial point of view going on, but I feel like, you know, like the average person who's just eating a pretty mainstream diet is probably getting about 15 grams of fiber. Like RDI recommendations are 30 grams, and I honestly think it should be around 40. Yeah, 30 to 40 grams of fiber a day coming from, you know, like starchy vegetables in general, fruits, whole gluten-free grains, like...
I mean, there should be vegetables with every meal.
100%.
Regardless of what that meal is. There's no such thing as breakfast food, lunch food, or dinner food. There's just food. You can have curry for breakfast. You can have a salad for breakfast. It's totally fine to do those things.
Yep, 100%.
So there's no reason. And even if you're going to go with something like a balanced smoothie as a meal, you can put some zucchini in there. You can put some cauliflower in there. You know, add some mango, or you know, you can get fruit and vegetables. You can get fiber into that smoothie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say like they're my top 3 for regulating the bowel. And then beyond that, if you're really struggling, then I think there's a plethora of reasons why you could be. And that's where I think like exactly what we were saying right at the start of this, like don't try and nut it out yourself. Like do your best obviously and be informed and educate yourself. But if you're hitting walls rather than just eliminating foods and, you know, like trying all these, you know, wacky gut supplements that are just marketed and realistically cost, you know, $80 to $150 a supplement, just see someone who it honestly could be such an easy fix.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right, we're going to wrap that up.
Okay, we've done
Thank
well.
you.
No worries. Thanks for listening.
Where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Carissa and I Nutrition and Facebook the same. Obviously working at the JCN clinic in Brisbane. You can do you want emails or anything, or just social
I
media?
will put all of the links in below anyway.
Just social media is probably the easiest way to get in contact.
Yep.
Carissa and Nutrition.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, team. Thanks for your input, Jay.